You can put this about in here, and we can halter him, I suppose. So, alright, this way. Oh. He says, "Where are you? Where are you?" That's a good boy. Yeah, see? Alright, good job. I'm going to show you some techniques and processes that I've used with horses that help a horse to behave better, show less emotional problems, and to focus and concentrate on what's being done during situations like haltering. This video is an informational video only. It's not a training video. It would take hours to go over how to do each one of the things that I'm going to show you and to do them safely with a horse. So if you try any or all of the things I show you in this video, make sure that you get a qualified equine professional to help you and to train you how to do them and to then work with you and your horse to do them. Do not try them without the help of a qualified equine professional. It's dangerous to work with a horse, but it's even more dangerous to work with a horse that has behavioral issues or emotional issues. Please be safe and get the help first. I want to start off with some safety first. When you're haltering a horse or doing something around the horse's head, you're blocking his view of his rear end. And if the horse is skittish about being handled around his rear end or something happening around his rear end, he's going to keep an eye on that. So if you're blocking it from his view, you're going to make him nervous because he can't see that area that he's nervous about. And it's going to split his attention between the haltering that you're doing and the concern he has over his rear end. So you want to make sure that you address that issue if your horse has an issue with being handled in the rear end, his legs, his tail. I'm learning how to braid tails, so don't critique me on my ability to braid or not braid his tail, please. What I wanted to point out was that people often realize that you need to be able to handle the front of the horse so that the horse is not spooky when you're haltering him. But you also need to be able to handle the rear of the horse. The horse needs to be confident about things touching him from behind. You need to be able to do things with the tail, with his legs, his hocks. You need to be able to pick his legs up. You need to be able to walk past him. And you need to be able to do it with some emotion and not get a rise out of the horse. It's okay that he looks, it's good that he looks, but you don't want him to be shocked. Because the reason is because when you're haltering a horse, you're blocking his vision of his rear end. If you're not 98% sure that that horse isn't going to kick you or negatively react to you being behind it or working with the back end of the horse, you should not be behind that horse or working with the back end of that horse. You should seek professional help and have someone who knows what they're doing help you with that problem, because it's a very serious issue and it's a very dangerous issue. You'll notice that I always wear safety shoes. That's so that if my foot gets stepped on, my toes don't get crushed. I've even had a horse step back here, and because part of his foot was on the steel toe, I only got a grazing bruise here. Some people believe that a horse is strong enough to crush the toe of a steel toe. Mythbusters actually did a show on this and showed that that's not so. My brother actually got part of his toe run over by a car tire with a steel toe on, and he didn't get any injury to his Now, just foot. Because you're wearing safety shoes doesn't mean you don't have a responsibility to pay attention to where the horse's feet are and where your feet are. They're just to protect you from the unpredictable movements that you can't anticipate and to help you not be paranoid about where a horse's feet are, especially one that has behavior issues or emotional issues and is a little bit more volatile in their movement. From a safety perspective, but also from the perspective that you don't want to rush your horse along too fast through a training process, you want to make sure that the horse can do the step that you're in a variety of different situations with different amounts of distractions around it before you move on to the next step. And you want to make sure that you're quite certain that the horse is going to be able to perform the next step. If your haltering problem with your horse starts before you've even gotten to the process of putting the halter on, you're walking out to the horse with the halter and the horse sees the halter and goes, and it takes off, chances are that the problem isn't the actual haltering process. It's probably that your horse has attached something to that process. Many times I see people will halter their horse and then they'll go do a very specific activity after they halter the horse. Say they halter the horse and they bring him out to the round pen and then they lunge them. If you do that, the horse over time will start to associate the lunging or whatever the activity is with the haltering, and they'll think, oh, they're going to halter me, so they're going to go lunge me. And if the activity is something that either emotionally stresses them or physically stresses them, or maybe the activity is done too long, it could be shortened up a little bit, and the horse doesn't like the activity because it's either stressing them or it's hurting them or it's emotionally too much, then they won't want to be haltered because they know that's what's coming next. The best thing I think you can do in this situation is to videotape yourself haltering the horse and taking the horse out to do the activity that you do immediately after haltering. And then look at that video afterwards and watch the expression on the horse's face. Does the horse start out in the beginning looking fine and okay, and then over a little bit of time his face starts to get cranky and angry looking, and the ears go back and the head's down, he's just going along? If that's the case, then you can probably shorten that exercise up a little bit and both of you will win. Look and see if the horse looks like he's in pain going one way or another or doing something specific in that activity. Look and see if he's emotionally upset. Look and see if he's focused on you. Is he looking away and looking at other stuff and not paying attention to you? And see if you can fix whatever it is that the horse doesn't like in that activity. Once you've done that, you can work on disassociating that activity with haltering by going out and having the halter just laying over your shoulder while you're cleaning up the stall or you're cleaning up poop in the paddock. You can walk up to him and take the halter and just pet him with it and then put it back and walk away. And he'll over time not know whether you bringing the halter out means he's going to be haltered and do something or you just have it with you. You can go out and just randomly halter him, take the halter off, give him a slice of apple and walk away. And then he won't know whether you're going to go out and halter him and just take it back off, or you're going to do an activity with him. Or you can go out and you can halter him and just walk him around a little circle and take it back off and say, oh, thanks, and walk away. And you do this, and his expectation that that activity that he doesn't like is going to follow haltering will fade away. Here goes Bubby. Please make sure, though, that you find out what it is that the horse doesn't like about that activity and make an attempt to fix it. And don't just do the latter suggestion of making the haltering more random. Before I show you the actual process that I would use to encourage a horse to better accept being haltered, I'm going to show you a few exercises that you can do with a horse that will help the horse calm down in general. Any exercise that you can do with a horse that breaks that reactive instinct to flee and to react and encourages them to focus and concentrate and think will help your horse calm down. Good boy. Oh boy, that's a good job. Nice job. But I want to show you that doing things like stretching exercises with your horse helps your horse focus and concentrate. Watch when I show you this clip of him doing a stretching exercise. He has to concentrate on not moving his feet. He has to concentrate on keeping his feet still. He has to move his head back and stretch back and get the treat. And while he's doing this, he's actually working on his balance. He's working on his coordination. He's working his head, and you're working around his head, which is important to a horse that has difficulty haltering. Anytime you do activities with your horse that helps the horse slow down and focus and process, like in these stretching exercises. You're helping the horse be less reactive. You're encouraging the horse to think. A horse tends not to think, they tend to react. When they see someone coming towards them out of the woods with a ski mask on, they don't look at him and go, is that a burglar or is that my neighbor and they're just cold? They react. Where we sit and we think and we look and we're like, who is that? Are they okay? Are they not okay? Should I let them approach or should I do something about it? It's two different ways of thinking. And when you get the horse to learn to slow down and think about what they're doing, you're encouraging them to use more of our way of doing things, to think rather than react. But if you can get your horse to do different stretching exercises, which will help the muscles. Oh, the birds, huh? Doing massage work with a horse is another thing that will help a horse that has a hard time haltering. If you massage, say, the horse's ears and pet the forelock and massage the forehead, you can help a horse calm down for the haltering process and help them become less head shy in general if they're head shy. The other process is to teach your horse the difference between focused energy and unfocused energy. An example of focused energy would be I'm asking the horse to back up. That's focused energy. I'm directing it right at the horse. If I'm just flailing my arms around, or I have a bag in my hand, I'm whipping the bag around, or I'm throwing the ball up in the air, or I'm running past the horse, that's unfocused energy. And if you can teach the horse the difference between the two, then the horse will be a lot calmer, because the horse will understand that it doesn't need to react to every little movement or every big movement, that there are specific focused movements that the horse has to pay attention to, and it can disregard all that other nonsense movement. And I'll do a separate video on that to help show you how to do that, because it can be a little bit complicated, because when I do, say, around the head like this to see if the horse is head shy, that's really an unfocused movement, but it may look like a focused movement. So I really would need to explain that to you. But if you can start by just simply teaching your horse that you can do things like this, and that that's different than focusing your attention on them and asking them to move, it'll be a start in the right direction. It'll help your horse calm down significantly. We can jump around. We can do it. We can jump around. And we can jump around. Use your imagination. If you have a horse that's afraid of something like blowing objects, blowing tarps, blowing flags and such, put something out there when it's a windy day. Put it a distance away where he feels safe. Move it closer after a while until he gets to be like this horse, where this tarp blowing in the wind, really strong wind, really doesn't matter to him anymore. This way, you're training him when you're not even there. Make sure the horse is in an area where it has good fencing all the way around the entire area. Make sure it's an open area with good footing so that the horse can buck, kick, run, and bolt away from the object that you have out there. Make sure your horse has had recent foot care so that the horse isn't tripping on his feet if he bolts away suddenly from the object. There is a reason why I give food rewards during training, and it's not because I'm over pampering my horse or I'm treating him like a person or any of those things that you're going to hear natural horsemanship trainers say. A horse uses a different part of his brain to chew and eat than he does to flee and react. And if you use food reward during training, some form of it, doesn't matter which one really. You can teach a horse that during training they're going to use that part of their brain. They're not going to use the flight and react. And you'll notice that my horse is very calm during training. And that's because I've used food reward training with him a lot. And he's gotten so that during training, that's the mindset that we use. And that's because I kept him in that mindset with using the food. There are several trainers that speak on this. I really wanted to put that point out there so that people realize that there's a reason to use food during training. Now, if your horse has a problem with treats or receiving food, then naturally you need to work on that issue first. And you need to make sure that the horse is healthy enough and fit enough to have hay stretcher pellets or carrots during training, and you really need to check with your vet first before you do it. Most people realize that when you're haltering a horse, it'd be a good idea if you could handle their ears, their eyes, their nose, their mouth, and that you should be able to put their head down. You should be able to turn their head in towards you. You should be able to put it back with very minimal pressure. You should also be able to put your horse's head up. Some people forget that, and they think about head down so much they forget that you really have to be able to put a horse's head up also. Something that people don't often realize is that the horse needs to be confident about you working behind the horse as well as in front of the horse, because a horse that's spooky about you doing things behind them is going to want to be paying attention to what's going on behind him. When you're haltering a horse, you're doing things that block his view of his rear end. And when you do things like that, if he's skittish of things around his rear end, he's going to want to see that at all times. And when you block that, it's going to make him nervous. It's going to split his attention between what you're doing around his head and what he's afraid might happen back there. You want to make sure that you can touch the horse all over with the halter that you're going to be putting on him without some kind of ruckus, because if you can't touch him with it, you're not going to be able to put him on him. You want to be able to loop it on an ear and be able to ask him to put his head down and turn his head. Whoops, fell off. And turn his head without too much ruckus. Okay. You want to be able to toss it around a little bit. You want to watch out for his eye, and it's alright for him to be a little bit concerned that you may hit his eye. He can flinch a little bit as long as he's not going to go crazy over it. If you're having trouble training something, break it down into steps. Do over the nose first, say for haltering. That's a good boy. Then work on up over the neck, doing different things with around his neck. And then you put the two of them together. Hold the loop of the nose in this hand, the end in this hand up, head down, pass it over, bring it up over the nose, bring it up, and you tie it off. Chap and I are working on something a little curious today. We're haltering from the right. Hold the hand on the nose loop, the other hand on the end, bring the head down, pass it over, bring it up over the nose, adjust it if it needs any kind of adjusting, get his hair out of the way, pass it through the loop, make sure everything's still all set here, and we tie off the halter, pass the piece down through the bottom so it's not sticking out, and there we have a haltered horse. We have a haltered horse. Now he's very accustomed to a bag. You can have a bag put all over him. You can put it on his ears, whatever. So he's not afraid of anything really around his face. But you want to challenge the horse a little bit after you've got him to a point where you can halter them. You want to challenge them a little bit because you want to be able to halter your horse in a variety of different situations with different stressors. Put that down. Pass it over. Put it on the nose. Yeah. There we go. Good job. Good job. Very good job. Now you could have him stand on a tarp. You could put a tarp over his back and halter him. You could hold a garbage bag in your hand and halter him. You could put this on Bubby's ear. And we could halter him, I suppose. That's a good boy. Alright, this way. Go up. He says, "Where are you? Where are you?" That's a good boy. Yeah, see? Alright, good job. Nice job. Now to tie the halter, you come through, go around, bring it through, pull it. You don't want to tie it up here, you want to tie it on here, and you want the rope facing towards the back. And I tuck whatever's left down under here so it's out of the way and not flopping around. When a horse wants another horse to move, there's generally distance between them. The horse doesn't get right up snugly close to the horse and then ask them to move. There's a distance between them. When a horse gets in close to another horse, it's generally because they're standing nose to tail and swatting flies for each other, or they're standing close and one's really scratching on the other one's neck and the other one's scratching on him, and they're in close for that purpose. So if a horse is in close to another horse, it's generally because they want him to stand still for something. If they have a distance between them and they move, it might be more likely that they want them to move. So you can use this yourself when you're haltering a horse. Instead of walking up to the horse with a halter like this, or trying to be sneaky and go sideways like this, walk up to the horse so that they see the halter, but not that that's right out in front of you, because it might be misinterpreted that you want them to move. Just hold the halter, walk up to them, and pet them and get in close to them, and then introduce the halter after you're in close and having pet them, because then you're cueing them that you want them to stand still in their own language, in their own culture. For those of you that would like to use clicker training or food reward training with your horse to teach them things like haltering, but then you wouldn't want to in the end have to give them a treat every time you halter your horse, there is a solution to this. You can use clicker training and food reward training, and in the end, after the process is completely taught, give very few treats or give none at all. And the way you would do that is you have a process that you're going through. You have steps. Step 1, you'd click and treat him and give him a food reward. After step 2, you'd click and treat him and give him a food reward. After step 3, you would click and treat him or give him a food reward. And then eventually what you'd be working up to is you'd do step 1 and step 2 and then give him a treat instead of giving one between 1 and 2. Then the next step might be to occasionally give a treat after doing step 1, step 2, step 3. And the end process would be that you would do the whole entire haltering and give them one treat. And then after you do that, if you don't want to give a treat every time you halter the horse, you would give the treat after the haltering for several times to reinforce that that's what you want. And then what you would do is occasionally you would halter the horse and then very smoothly and quickly put the lead rope on and walk off. And more times than not, in the beginning, you would halter them and give them a treat, but then occasionally you would do the clipping and walking off without giving a treat. And then over time, you would gradually switch that so that you were putting on the lead rope and walking off and do other things more often than you're treating them after you halter them. And then you just work up to, eventually, you just always clip the lead rope on and walk away if you didn't want to give them treats anymore after haltering. I do a hodgepodge of food reward training, clicker training, and other uses of food during training. I really don't want to confuse people with that. If you're new to using food during training, I would recommend that you start out with clicker training. I just want to explain a little bit of what I do, because what I do isn't random. There's a purpose to it. If you watch the video that I did on getting a horse to accept clippers without being haltered or tied or held, you'll see that I used food at set intervals, and that was to keep the horse calm and focused on what we were doing. And I spoke about this a little bit earlier, that if a horse is chewing and eating, he's using a side of his brain that's different than that of the reacting and wanting to move. So I wanted to keep him calm, so I did that at set intervals. And the next step in that process would be to extend those intervals longer and longer and longer. The next time I would go out and do that process with him, I'd wait longer in between giving him the hay stretcher pellets. Another thing that I do is food reward training. Now, the way I decide whether I use clicker training or food reward training is whether I can be sloppy or not. Say if I want the horse to move his head over here and I don't really care where he's going to put his head, I'll use just food reward training. If, say, I want him to move his head over and I want it very specifically in this exact spot, then I'd use a clicker, or I'd go and make the noise, because each time I want him to know his head's got to go exactly in that same spot. I think the best way to fix behavioral issues with a horse is to really get to know that horse, to understand it like you would understand your best friend, to spend time with it where you're not training, where you're observing it, where you're interacting with it, and you're not expecting something from it and it's not expecting something from you. To really create a positive bond with the horse and for you both to really understand each other.